welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Matthew Dowling, serving the 51st Legislative District in Fayette and Somerset County. Today we have the opportunity to be out at one of our traditional well sites in a compressor station for oil and gas management, and joining me is Bruce this morning. And Bruce, you've had this property for quite some time, and you've done a lot of work to it. I know you had to go through the process of reclaiming it as it was a former mine site. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the property and what work you've done to get up and running, and how many wells you have here?
8 on the property of our own. We have one additional well here that was drilled by our Marcellus partner, so 9 total, 8 conventional shallow wells and 1 deep conventional well. We tried to lease the property, Matt, for several years. It was owned by a fairly large family that was spread out, over multiple states, and really couldn't decide what they wanted to do with it. And finally, after several years of negotiating with them, they decided to sell it. And we bought it in 2017. Thanks for coming today, by the way. We're glad to have people come out and see that, what the industry really does, that we do try to be good stewards of the land, and in Fayette County we own about 1,000 acres ourselves. So when we moved in here, this was a dirt road. We work collaboratively with the local municipalities, including German Township and Nicholson Township. And we cleaned the road up and the property when we moved in and started to drill wells. We paved Lutheran Church Road here and actually worked with the water authority, Mountain Water, to put a new 6-inch water line in here so they could loop their system. Eventually, though, as you saw this morning when you came in and we talked briefly, this was strip mined and actually had a drift mine here to the right of us. And we got a what they call a Good Samaritan permit to reclaim the strip mine, and then the sediment pond that was used for that, we dredged it, made it larger, and put a new dam on the other side of it, and used that for the water that we used when we were drilling and completing the wells. So we didn't have to put the trucks on the road. We could just pump it directly out of our own pond here. And over time, as the wells started to be produced, the pressure came down on them, and we had to put this compressor station in about 8 years ago. And it lowers the pressure on the pipelines to gather the gas from the wells so that the wells can produce more gas. And put the system in, built the building here, and tied it into EQT's gathering line here that starts actually up on the mountain near Laurel Caverns, and then the terminus is actually in Waynesburg. So this facility runs 24 hours a day. We do monitor it, remotely. So my well tender here actually can look on the computer in the morning, see how much gas is going through the line, see what the pressures are. If there is, a time when the pressure goes too high and it shuts down, it sends a text message out to my foreman, myself, and my well tender, or if there's any trouble here, so that they can respond to it, quickly, and try to mitigate any problems that's out here.
Sure. Now, one of the things that I always like to ask about is government regulation. I know Pennsylvania is sometimes not the easiest and not always the friendliest to different types of businesses, especially your industry. You mentioned the Good Samaritan, the permit you had to get. Can you talk a little bit about the length of time it took you to get permitting, and some of the regulatory issues that your industry is faced with that you're trying to work through right now?
Yeah, well, thanks for taking note of that. I know you see that a lot, in Harrisburg. With I think we've come to your office several times to discuss this, but it's good that you can see it here and what we've tried to do. But let's go to the the legacy mine issue that was here that we cleaned up. So it took 1.5 years to get that permit. I mean, I have no idea why it should have taken that long. I mean, we were here to actually clean something up on our own property. I mean, there wasn't the issue that we were, coming on somebody else's property. And then when we did get the permit, they would not give us a stockpile site on our own property to stockpile the coal. I mean, it's a little difficult to actually mine the coal and be putting it into trucks here the way we would do it with a front end loader fast enough, taking it out. So we actually got it changed, but it took about 6 months to get that change in the permit. So, I was disappointed about that. The other thing that we ran into for regulations is the pond down here was, we wanted to fix it. They didn't want us in the water. They said, that we needed a permit to get in there. Well, we just let it drain. So they let us, after we took all the water out, eventually, we negotiated where we put another cutter below it, where we could divert anything that came out or over the dam, and dredged it, rebuilt it, and put it back in operation. So we thought we were doing a good thing here so that we could use the water, not get on the roads. They said if we were going to drill, we had to get another permit to actually extract the water. We could use it for our shallow wells, but for some reason, they thought this deep conventional well was a Marcellus well, and we couldn't use it for it. It took me about a month to convince the people in Harrisburg this is not, a shale well. It's just a deep, conventional well. And there's hundreds of them around it. So that took about a month of negotiation before we could do that. So,
and I think what maybe people don't realize, or the piece that our constituents miss if they're not in the gas and oil industry, is that you've already laid out a lot of expenses while you're waiting for those permits. You've already purchased the property, and you're not able to produce anything to offset. Yeah. You're not generating revenue. So that's all time that people within the industry are paying for, waiting for those permits.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. You've got a lot of upfront investment, to try to amortize over, some reasonable period of time. You don't need more time, spent on it. And also, we're engaging subcontractors, so we have downtime with them, which makes them increase their price that they charge us.
Sure.
So. The good news is that we did have, and I think to some extent it's the industry's fault, is that we know that a lot of people, think that the industry does a lot of, damage to the environment. And I think you can see here we don't generally do that. There are times that things happen that, you try to, fix as quickly as possible. But we need to engage legislators like yourself, who are willing to come out and see what we do and understand what we do. And we need to do, as an industry, a better job of that. We can't just sit here and think, well, everybody's just going to believe what we tell them if we don't show them actually what we do.
Sure.
So,
well, we appreciate the chance to come out and look around today. I think we're going to head inside now and take a look at the compression system, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Well, now we've moved inside of the compressor station, and we're looking at what footprint-wise is a small piece of equipment, or smaller than I expected to be in here, but services all of your wells on this site. Can you tell us, what does a piece of equipment like this really do? How does it change the pressure, and what's the purpose of it in the line of operation?
Okay, well, that's a good question. The purpose of it is that we have 75 wells that come in through our gathering system to this compressor station. Comes in here and is regulated, the red regulator there that you can see in front of us. Pressure's down, but we actually need to do this because as the wells produce and the gas comes out, the pressure on the well goes down. And if as the pressure in the well goes down, the production goes down. So in order to get into the gathering system that we sell the gas into, which is EQTs, we had to lower the pressure on our gathering system. So what this compressor does is actually pull the line pressure down to a point where the wells can produce. And actually here, it actually brings it down to vacuum on the suction side of the compressor. And the discharge side runs anywhere between, I don't know, normally 50 to sometimes 80 psi. But if we did not have that, most of these wells would produce very little or no gas without the compressor running. But as you can see here, this actually services 75 wells. It's not very big, you know, in terms of the footprint. If you look at some of the unconventional wells, you know, if you had 75 of those coming in here, it would take up half of this property. So it comes in here. It's regulated, meaning the pressure is, you know, dropped if necessary before it goes into the suction side, because the compressor, if it gets too high, would bog down and shut off. And I think, like we talked a little bit ago, we do monitor this with a SCADA system remotely, where our operator here, Paul, you know, can log on the computer every morning or in the evening, see what the pressure, the production is. Or if it does shut down, if there's something wrong, it will send a text message out to us so that we can respond quickly.
Now, I know there's even some safety devices on the equipment,
Yes.
some pins that will shut down the system if need be.
Yes.
Can we take a walk over there and take a look at that system
Sure.
as well?
Sure. This is the control panel, Matt. What you're looking at here is actually the suction pressure monitor here. So that monitors the pressure as it comes in on the suction side. There are pins on it, as you said, you saw earlier here, that if it gets too high, it will shut it down, or if it gets too low, it will shut it down. And again, when that happens, then through the SCADA system, you know, a text message will go to our operator so that he knows it's down. But for protecting the engine itself, you know, we have pressure, oil filter pressures, differential pressures, coalescers are in here that actually filter the oil as it comes through the system itself and recycles it. So if there's too high of temperature on the water cooler, too low a pressure, you know, on your oil system, or too high, it will actually shut the machine down so it doesn't ruin it. So I think you asked me earlier too, how long do these, you know, are these in service?
Yes.
This one's been in service almost 10 years, maybe a little bit longer. But we contract with a company that provides these on a rental basis, and part of the rental cost, they actually maintain it as far as servicing it for oil, any filters, and about every, I was going to ask Paul, how often do we rebuild this? About every 3 years, Paul? Yeah. Yeah. They'll come in and rebuild the engines for us. But other than that, it's fairly easy to maintain, you know, and it's pretty reliable, you know. So what we'll probably have to do eventually is maybe change this out for a smaller compressor, because, you know, the production goes down, you know, on a curve. If you start here producing, it actually exponentially will start to decline as the life of the well, you know.
What is the average lifespan of the conventional wells that you're drilling here?
That's a good question. Economic lifespan is generally about 20, 25 years, but there are wells that we have that have been operating for 100 years, you know. Not a lot of gas, but if you keep the pressure low enough, you can continue to produce them. And some of them, you know, you can go back into, you know, and rework them, meaning you can drill them to a deeper formation, or, you know, frack another formation that's in it. When we bought this property, there were legacy wells here. We actually took one over, and we do produce it. It does make a lot of gas, but we still produce it. So.
Well, Bruce, I want to thank you for not only showing me, but our constituents who may be viewing kind of an inside look at your well site here, so that we have a better understanding of how the gas and oil industry operates and the footprint or impact that it has on our local communities. We'll be back with more legislative report in just a moment.
Did you know that the state capitol is not only the epicenter of the Commonwealth's governing bodies, but was once home to 390 preserved Civil War flags? During the war, it was customary for each state to furnish their regiments in battle with flags representing their contribution to the Union Army. After the war, Pennsylvania's military department was responsible for collecting the flags, and in 1872, they were reverently housed in the Capitol. Following the completion of construction on the new Capitol building in 1914, the Civil War flags were removed to the Capitol Rotunda. They were kept untouched in custom-made flag cases until 1982, when the Capitol Preservation Committee initiated its Save the Flags project. Throughout the years, dust and long-term vertical display of the flags had begun to devastate the brittle silk fabric and painted designs. The flags were removed by local textile conservators and were repaired and preserved in storage units that protect the relics from light, dust, and excessive handling. Now you know.
Welcome to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Matt Dowling. We're here at the Swinglish & Sons stone quarry and where you also have your strip mine that you're working. Tell me a little bit about the history of your company. I know it's Swinglish & Sons and you're second generation, and now you have your sons involved as well. But tell me a little bit about the Swinglish history here.
We started stripping coal in 1977, my father and my two older brothers, and then I came in a little bit later. I was still in high school back then. And my dad stripped up in here back in the 50s, so we came in this area about 2000 up here, and started stripping up here, and then we got into the stone and started making the stone and selling it and coal, and we do construction also. We do a lot of road sites and building sites, ponds, ditches, anything you can do with
heavy machinery.
This kind of equipment. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, for people that don't know about strip mining, what's the process? How do you extract the coal in a strip mining setting?
Well, we drill down, find the coal, and map it, and because this coal wasn't even mapped when we first came in here. We just heard word of mouth and an old book saying there was mine headings and such. So then we started stripping the coal. You take the overburden, you set it off to the side, you go strip down to the coal, take the coal out, and then we put real good material down on the bottom. Then you bring that material back in, put it back in, seed it, plant it, and keep on going like that. Well, really, you keep on going and kind of backfill behind yourself. But yeah, you remove the dirt all out of it, make a big hole, take the coal out, fill it back in.
Now, you've been in the coal industry for quite some time, your family since '77. What are some of the changes you've seen in the coal industry? And I think we're in a little bit of a boom here for coal right now. Is that right?
It's always been cyclical or whatever. It runs in cycles. It's ups and downs, ups and downs. Anybody who's been in the mining industry knows that it booms, and then right when you think, boy, this is really great, down it goes again, and but right now it seems like it's on an upswing. The economy seems like it's picking up. Natural resources seem to be doing pretty good right now. A few years back it got pretty tight,
Have you seen over time any changes in regulation, either DEP regulation or federal regulation, that has changed the way that you've had to do business at all?
Yeah, they got a lot more stringent, where you had to apply a lot more time to it to make sure that you were in compliance. You had to spend a lot more time doing paperwork and stuff than it did back in the old days. But all the rules and regulations are just they're pretty much the same. You have to backfill it right. You have to make sure the water's clean, and you can't disturb things and tear. You disturb them long enough to get the coal out, and you have to put things back the way it was, and usually it's better, because a lot of these places were tore up, pit holes where the ground settled and everything, and we usually compact it in good enough that you can build or make developments or do whatever on it.
Sure. So you're turning that earth back over, and it's pretty much completely reclaimed when you're done with the mine.
Yeah. You have to have grass standing, then you have to wait a year, and I mean all those regulations, and they enforce it where you come out with a good product. You come out with a good. If you're going to stay in business, you have to you have to do it right.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the coal here that you have coming out of the quarry. I know there are different strengths of coal, and you sell the coal that's strong, or excuse me, the stone that's strong enough that's coming out here. Tell me a little bit about the stone products, different sizes that you have.
We make every size right now except the real small stuff. We're working on that system right now. There's a shaker over there we're going to put in to get the 1Bs, the real small stuff, and the anti-skid. But we sell 2B up to R8s, and it's state approved. We just put a lab in so that we can, the stone passed state spec, but they said we needed a laboratory. So we put a lab in to test it here on site. So the stone is certified for hardness and durability where it doesn't break down, and then the coal's a metallurgical coal. It's you can make steel with it, and that market goes up and down. And it seems right now that the met market's coming back where you can sell it for making steel, and then we sell house coal. We've always sold house coal, even nut and lump and all that different stuff.
Now, you're a family business here, and I'm curious, do you employ anyone outside of the family? How many employees do you have?
Yeah, we have about 8 employees. We'd like to this year, if the way things are picking up, we might try to go to a dozen or 15 employees. But it's us and the family, and then the guys that's been with us forever. I mean, we've had the same in family. We work as a family. We have family members work with us, 2 and 3 brothers, and it's always worked out good,
Sure. Well, we'll be back in just a moment with more legislative report.
Did you know that Act 16 of 1999 honors one of the greatest leaders in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives? The Matthew J. Ryan Legislative Office Building, once known as the Capitol Annex, is located next to the main Capitol building and honors the late Speaker of the House, Matthew J. Ryan. Those who visit this building will observe the magnificent architectural designs providing eloquence and grandeur to the building. Known as one of the greatest members in the history of the Pennsylvania State House, Matthew Ryan started his career in the legislature in 1963 and was elected Speaker in 1981. His charisma and knowledge will forever be reflected in the building now named after this great legislative leader. Now you know.
Welcome back to Legislative Report. We are at Swinglish and Sons today, and I see some trucks here in the background that aren't out running. Slower day today?
Yeah, because of the weather. We've had a lot of wet weather, so sometimes you're spinning your wheels, so to speak. You're not accomplishing anything. There's still some things that we can do, but those particular machines or trucks right now aren't needed. But we'll be shipping some stone out, so the machines will be working. But that's why some of the things are sitting. If the sun's shining like it was earlier in the week, then everybody's flying all over the place.
Unfortunately, you're an industry that is kind of dictated by the weather, so you don't always get to pick which days are going to be your good work days and which days aren't.
Yeah, you try to be productive each day. Sometimes that's a little more successful, but you find ways to get it done.
Now, we were talking a little bit ago with your brother about coal and also the rock that's coming out of the quarry, but you also are involved in a number of different construction projects where you're using your machinery to accomplish some different construction projects. Can you tell me a little bit about that side of your business?
Yeah, some of that earth moving is when new buildings are going up around here, so there's need to remove topsoil, level lots. Compaction, some of the stone can be used for that to get something up to a grade that is solid to build on. So and anything from excavating to earth moving, that type of machinery.
And you've also helped to compact some ground below where roads are going in, is that correct?
Yeah, compaction either under a road or under a building is the same. You remove anything that's not substantial to build on, and then engineers will take compaction tests or nuke tests, and then you build up by building in layers, and then you use the machines for compaction. Some of them aren't here; they're out on the job or different locations. But it's just something to where you want to build up so it's a substantial solid surface to build on.
Sure. Now, your business, how wide of a range do you do work in? Do you work primarily in Fayette County or across the Commonwealth?
Mainly Fayette, Greene, Washington, Westmoreland, that
So
area.
you're down in the southwestern
Yeah.
Pennsylvania corner
Yes,
doing
yeah,
your work down
yeah,
here.
pretty much. Yeah.
And then your products that are being hauled out of the quarry here, how far, where are the end users normally?
There,
for those
right now, a lot of
products?
it's going into West Virginia because it's a non-calcareous stone that doesn't change the pH of water. So that's where they're coming in and hauling it into West Virginia. So that works well for their road systems and some of the construction sites that they have there.
Now, what type of individuals do you do business with? Normally, larger construction companies or individuals who are just looking for a load of stone?
Yeah, any size. From
Okay.
small to large, we try to fit it all in, and it's been working.
And if someone would be looking to get a load of stone, how could they get in touch with Swinglish and Sons?
I think, well, there's some different signs that we've posted. I think we're on the internet, and may plan on doing more of that. But there's, I think, yellow pages we've advertised in, and we're trying to get a little more organized in that area right now.
Sure. So they can contact you guys directly through the telephone and let you know
Yes.
what type of stone quality you may have.
Yeah, then we can answer any question that they have.
Now, you're a third generation business right now. What are your future plans moving forward for the company?
Well, I think there's plenty of opportunity here. That I think we have 500 acres or more permitted with stone. So we're just trying to, with the next generation coming up, expand into having state-approved stone, and just open to any market. As you asked, what size individual you work with? Well, you from small to large, anyone. So we're hoping that makes a kind of a longevity. That helps with that.
Okay, well, I would thank you for having us out today and for showing us your operation.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
It's been a pleasure to be here. We thank you for tuning in to Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Matthew Dowling. If you need to contact me or my office, please wait for the information that will be on your screen in just a moment.